Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex, sometimes really bewildering topics, and hopefully bring you the core insights.
And today we are definitely diving deep. We're looking at gang stalking, a term that, well, it already comes loaded with questions and complexities.
Right, it typically means these organized harassment campaigns, but the source we're using today takes it somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. We've got an audio excerpt. It's from Spirit Stalking and Witchcraft by zephDaniel.mp3. And our goal here isn't to solve gang stalking, but to really unpack his specific perspective.
Which is, let's say, highly unconventional, multidimensional even.
Definitely. So we'll distill his main arguments, some pretty compelling personal stories he shares, just to understand this unique viewpoint presented in the source.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Seth Daniels' core idea here really departs from, the usual explanations involving maybe government agencies or disgruntled groups.
Oh, completely. He argues pretty strongly that gang stalking is almost, his words, 100% governed by witchcraft and spiritual evil.
So not just physical harassment, not just political stuff, something deeper.
Much deeper, according to him. He talks about this pyramid of evil.
A pyramid, how does that work?
Well, he claims that witches are at the top of the gang stalking pyramid.
Okay. Which is at the top and below them.
That's where it gets really expansive. He connects it to major institutions, the military-industrial complex, for instance.
Wow, okay. So powerful entities.
Yeah, and even down to, city offices. He mentions the Los Angeles mayor's office, the fire department, police, even the FBI. He sees this influence as pervasive, top-down spiritual control.
And the origin of this evil.
Mm.
It's not just human corruption in his view.
No, he's very clear on that. He insists it comes from another dimension. He uses the word cosmic.
Cosmic, so outside our normal reality.
Exactly. Transcending time and space as we usually understand them. He's suggesting reality itself is sort of permeable to these forces.
Okay, so if this is a kind of spiritual warfare from another dimension, how does someone actually become a target in this framework?
Well, according to the source, it's often unclear why someone ends up targeted. They just find themselves on a list.
A list. And what happens then?
Being on this list, he says, leads to this systematic exclusion from, well, normal life.
Like what kind of things?
Things you wouldn't even think twice about, usually. Getting restaurant reservations, booking a hotel, finding a spot in an RV park. He says targets are just shut out.
And professionally, too.
Oh, definitely. Finding or keeping employment becomes incredibly difficult. It leads to social isolation as well. It's designed to cut them off.
And he gets into some really specific personal experiences of this, right? Not just theory.
Yes, very specific. He talks about attempts at identity theft, facing false accusations.
Like what?
Things like being accused of stealing from a company, or even horrifying things like child abuse accusations. Plus, a constant sense of being watched.
Watched how?
He mentions listening devices, feeling like he's being monitored physically, and even talks about weapons that are hitting them. It sounds like a relentless, full-spectrum assault.
That sounds absolutely harrowing. The psychological toll must be immense.
He emphasizes that. He states quite grimly that many targets are driven literally to suicide.
Wow.
And he includes himself in that, recounting being driven to that point himself 45 years ago. So it's deeply personal for him.
And he feels his current work makes him more of a target.
Yes, he believes his internet work, the Zephyr Report, makes him what he calls an ultra-target. He thinks this leads to immediate flagging, immediate exclusion.
So this intense targeting,
Yeah.
it's happening within what he sees as a stable reality.
Yeah.
Or is reality itself part of the picture?
That's the next layer. For him, reality isn't stable at all. He describes it as multidimensional and constantly in flux.
In flux out, like changing.
Yeah. He says things are moved around, things are switched. He even says the whole set changes daily. It's a pretty radical view of reality itself.
And this connects to the Mandela effect somehow. I've heard of that, people remembering things differently, like movie lines or brand names.
Exactly. He sees the Mandela effect not just as faulty memory, but as actual evidence of this cosmic change altering reality.
Does he give examples?
He does. He mentions the debate about whether bananas grow pointing up or down. He says he remembers them growing downwards, but now they grow upwards.
Interesting.
Another one he gives is a biblical reference changing from wineskins to wine bottles. He says that makes no sense historically and insists it was cosmically changed.
So reality itself is being rewritten in his view.
That's the idea. And he believes most people just don't see it because they have a, quote, little tiny perspective.
Like a 3D or 2D view, he says.
Right. They're locked into that limited view and assume it's the only reality, so they miss these deeper, multidimensional shifts that he perceives.
And this limited perception, does he connect that to how society is functioning or dividing?
He does. He talks about something he calls reverse stalking or isolationism.
Reverse stalking, what does that mean?
He sees it mainly online through censorship, shadow banning. The goal, he argues, is to keep people kept separated, to sever connections.
And he has personal experience with this too.
He mentions his Twitter followers dropping dramatically from like 2,700 down to 900 as an example of this enforced online isolation.
Okay, so isolation online. Does he scale that up to society as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. He claims society is in a total 100,000% civil war. A war of ideas, maybe, but fueled by intense hatred.
A civil war. That's strong language. What does he mean by that?
He describes seeing murderous hatred online. He points to comments on Kimberly Guilfoyle's social media as an example, calls them the most nasty, awful things.
And he contrasts that with
What he describes as glowing praise for Barack Obama found on other sites. Now, again, this is purely his observation and interpretation from the source. We're just relaying his perspective here.
Got it. So from his viewpoint, what's driving this civil war?
He frames it as a fundamental clash of moral viewpoints. On one side, he sees people cheering on death and immorality, and he specifically mentions abortion, perverse sex, pedophiles.
And the other side?
Those are the people resisting what he calls this push off the cliff. And because they resist, they become the targeted individuals. He also brings up Donald Trump's actions on trade deals as another point of friction in this larger conflict.
So it's a moral, political, and spiritual battle all rolled into one for him.
That seems to be his framework, yes. And it's not just abstract. He shares some very concrete, almost bizarre personal stories that seem to reinforce this belief for him.
Like this story about his truck.
Exactly. He recounts his truck being sabotaged repeatedly, tires cut, mechanics putting an indefinite hold on repairs.
How did he resolve that?
He claims he appealed directly to a higher authority, the head of the Dodge Corporation, and supposedly the problem was fixed immediately.
And he thinks that's because they knew he was targeted.
That's his interpretation. He believes his targeted status is known at high levels, even within corporations.
Wow. And then there's the dream involving Oprah and Marina Abramovich. That sounds quite specific.
Very specific, and he describes it as dark. In the dream, there's a cricket on Abramovich's hand that turns into a spider, then back into a cricket.
Okay, strange dream. Did he connect it to anything?
Directly. He says that shortly after, his life sort of fell apart. He attributes this collapse to a strong witchcraft spell he believes was initiated by Abramovich through that dream imagery.
A spell. And the cricket showed up again?
Yes, that's the really weird part. He says after the dream, he found an incredibly loud cricket in his bedroom. He perceived it as a physical manifestation, a witchcraft thing from another realm.
What did he do?
He says he dispatched it, killed the cricket, and he claims that action immediately broke the spell.
These are some intense experiences he's sharing. Did they lead him to any self-reflection?
Actually, yes. A really key moment for him was realizing that his own intense anger, his pure hate, specifically from yelling at politicians on TV, had, in his words, opened a door.
A door for what?
For demons and witchcraft spells to affect his life. This led him to really question his own reactions and behavior, seeing it as a vulnerability.
So after describing this vast, multidimensional conflict, these intense personal battles,
Yeah.
what does he offer as a way out? What's the solution, according to Zeph Daniel?
It comes down to faith. His ultimate solution is prayer in Jesus' name and cultivating a simple faith in Christ.
And he believes this directly counteracts the stalking.
Yes, he states that Jesus breaks the bonds of the stalking. That's the core remedy for him.
Is there more to it than just prayer? Any specific actions?
A big part of it, he suggests, is awareness. He thinks 90% of breaking a witchcraft spell is simply identifying it for what it is, understanding its source and nature.
So recognition is key.
Recognition, yes. And also a shift in attitude. He stresses overcoming hate with love, even forgiving persecutors.
Forgiving them, even amidst all this.
Yes, and handing them over to God for, as he puts it, adjudication, letting go of personal vengeance and trusting a higher power.
That's quite a spiritual discipline.
It is. And he ties it into another interesting concept, the biblical idea that the first will be last and the last will be first.
How does that relate?
He uses it to explain why seemingly obscure individuals like himself, or maybe even you listening, might be considered such important targets by these powerful negative forces.
Implying they have a hidden significance.
Exactly. Their perceived obscurity in this world might actually mean they have a high status in this reversed cosmic reality he describes, making them prime targets in this spiritual war.
So, wrapping this up, we've explored a really unique, multi-layered perspective on gang stalking, weaving together witchcraft, cosmic realities, and intense personal experiences, all from this one source.
It's definitely a framework that challenges conventional thinking on almost every level.
It really does. And it leaves us with a final thought, perhaps for you to consider. If any part of these ideas about unseen forces, multidimensional realities, if any of that were somehow true, how might that change how we understand our own personal struggles or even the conflicts we see playing out in the world?
Yeah, it certainly prompts you to look at things, maybe from a very different angle. What might be going on just beneath the surface of the everyday makes you think.